Welcome to part two. In part one, we traced out the scoop, we cut it out, we cleaned it up, we bent it, shaped it, and get it all kind of prepped and ready, kind of prove the concept. And in this episode, we're going to cut out the flange, and then we're going to weld that together. And then from there, we're going to make a tube that's going to go through the wall of the trailer and make a flange for the outside of that. So if you are just starting in this episode, we have a playlist down in the description, and we also have everything we use to build this vent scoop thing for our trailer. Just a custom build. It should help you in case you want to build something similar for classic car, motorcycle, your trailer, anything. So let me know what you think, but let's get into it. All right, so I got it on to the metal. Now I'm kind of laying out what I'm calling the flange. So it's the part that this is going to bolt onto. Just took a pair of calipers, kind of like an old beat up pair. And then I just put it as about an inch and then just kind of drug it around so that we could scribe a line going all the way around. And then I pivoted off of the tip and then kind of drew a circle. And then I pivoted off of this tip and just drew a circle. So then that way I can just kind of figure out where I want it to be. Because I'm not sure what this is going to look like just yet, whether I'm going to kind of come in here and kind of go out. Not sure what I'm doing there specifically just yet. So I'm going to cut this out the same way I cut that out, and everything should be pretty good. So I'm leaving enough room to weld, maybe put in some body filler or smooth it down. Not sure which way I want to go. And then pretty sure we're going to have, I don't know if we'll do a bolt and then a bolt and a bolt, 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 bolt. I'm not sure. Depends on how it feels and how it looks. And so this is where I'm at right now. Now I'm just going to get out the jigsaw and start cutting it out. All right, so this is what she's looking like currently. Yeah, we're starting to get pretty overkill with this, but that's the way we do it. I'm not sure that I'm going to leave this flat or not. I don't know if I'll scoop it in too. I think first things first is I'm going to get it this as clean as this. So I'm going to do all the flapper wheel and Scotch-Brite wheel. Just get it clean, get it down so that way it's just a little easier to work with, and I can see which is the good side and bad side, because this one has sort of a bad side and then a nicer side. And luckily I put the nicer side out. So I'm going to get that all cleaned up and then we'll see where we're at. All right, what are you thinking? Thinking it's looking pretty good. Definitely overkill. I really like this. So it's like Scotch-Brite and sandpaper, kind of tearing that thing up, and then what I'm calling like a flapper wheel. It's just a bunch of sandpapers. Those things seem to really do the trick when you're cleaning this stuff out. So I think it's sitting pretty well. What I think I'm going to do next is the hole. So probably going to do something stupid like a 4-inch hole so that we're getting like more than enough air. And then from there, I might go through and actually drill the holes in it. I'm not sure what I'm doing quite yet on that, whether it's the holes yet or not. And then from there, it's welding time. Gonna tack, 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 and then just, and then from there, probably gonna sand it, prime it. I'm not sure if I'm going to put some body filler on it just to make it perfect, because I have this idea in my head where this would look pretty cool if it was this. So I'd weld it and then grind off the weld completely. and then fill that in so that this is almost completely smooth going out. Just thought that would look pretty cool. I mean, it would add a decent more weight. I mean, that's what we're going for here, is to make this scoop as heavy as possible. So, all right, on to drilling a hole. Okay, so I'm in process of laying out the hole. I got scales out, rulers, and calipers. So what I did was I lined this up, went around pretty much how I cut it out with that 1 inch, let's say 1 inch reveal going all the way around, lined it up, went here, and then Sharpied around it. And then let's pull that off. And then I took the hole saw that I'm going to use apart. Yes, for some reason I'm using a 4-inch hole saw because I'm just making sure that this thing blows as hard as it can blow. And then I lined up this in here and then circled that. And I kind of just went around making sure that it was centered in this hole. Then I kind of visually looked at it. And then from there, I punched a big old center. So from there, I punched a center punch right there. Now we are ready to drill. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is drill out a small pilot hole. Okay, so now it's the fun part. So I've showed in a short before that you can use a wood hole saw to actually drill through metal, and stainless steel to boot. So now I'm going to coat this whole thing. I'm going to use my son's weight. I'm also going to use a smaller, more torqueier setting. And then I have this set to the highest clutch level. And now I'm just going to send it in. Also, the pre-drilled hole, you never want it to be bigger than the hole, than the drill hole that this is going to use, if that makes sense. Oh, there we are. There it is. Remember, it's hot, kids. All right, so we cut out the hole. We've deburred it. So that's just like a tool like this. Just go around, gets all the sharp spots off. Probably will hit this eventually. What's kind of cool is if I set this up relatively to where it should be, it's kind of funny because when you look at the other side, it's like compressing that. It'll be compressing the air right into the hole. So it's exactly what I wanted. So there should be like literally a tornado coming through here. So what we're going to do now is I have my welder. We kind of went through it and haven't used it in a while. It's not an expensive welder. It's just a Lincoln welder. It's actually only a 120 welder. So we'll see what it does on this, because I'm not sure what this, I mean, it's steel. We're just not sure what kind of steel it is. So hopefully it welds, and hopefully it welds good enough so it doesn't rip off the trailer. But what I'm going to currently do is I'm going to go around making sure everything is exactly even how I wanted it. So the Sharpie line is still relatively there. So that's going to get me within the ballpark pretty easily. And then these flat parts like this, no matter how thick they are, will have a tendency to warp. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to find the flattest piece on the wood, because I don't want to destroy this table. And this table is actually not that level, but this actually feels pretty good. And then this piece will have less of a tendency to warp because it's curved. That curvature actually gives it some strength. But what we're going to do after I line it up is I'm probably going to go tack, 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 and then we'll probably leave it just to see. But I'm probably need about 5-10 minutes of lining it up first. All right, so we're all dialed in. I'm double checking my measurements because it is so much easier to fix something right now compared to after it's welded together. So yeah. And then you have a willing participant to hold it down. Okay, watch your eyes. Here we go. Get welded. Welded good, actually. All right, haven't used the welder in a while, so these are just tacks. Now, you always want to tack stuff in because not only are the tacks going to hold everything, but they're also going to stop it from warping, hopefully. All right, so after we tacked it, we kind of went around and measured it, and somehow the whole thing shifted this way, because you can see my sharpening marks. So we're taking the oscillating tool and trying to break. That tack is fine. It looks like after the first tack, everything kind of shifted that way. So we're gonna try to break that one free and then move everything over. And we're gonna see how well that goes. I think it's all pretty close. That one's still on, but yeah, that one's broke free. So I might just need a screwdriver to finish it up. Let me see, I got a really small broken screwdriver, so. Yep. There it is. There, got it. So, gonna clean this back up, shift it back over, and then push it back down, and then hopefully we are good to go. I'll probably need to sand some of that down or just grind it down real quick. So I'll bring you back in when all that's done. All right, it's actually pretty easy. Cut it off with an oscillating tool. Definitely get one of those. So you can see right here how much it was off. You know, how much it was off. So yeah, all of that's going to be covered up by welding anyways. So I'm not too concerned about that. So back to welding it up, I guess. All right, so she's held on there now. Even for a 120 volt welder, look at that. We got penetration on this 10 gauge. So, I think that's pretty cool. I'm gonna make sure and triple check all of my dimensions here because, like, yeah, we're not gonna be doing that again. Messed up my nice finish. So, it's pretty cool now because now you can see that hole just forcing everything down in there. So now, I'm probably gonna sit and think on it just for a second and then come back tomorrow and then do the finished welds that are gonna be going all the way around. And then from there, it's gonna be the mounting holes. And then I'm still not sure if I'm leaving this like this or maybe cupping it in. I might just leave it like that, but. And then we got to make the tube that goes on the inside of the trailer. That's going to then focus the air, or it's going to channel the air from here through the trailer wall and then into the trailer. We got to build that, and unfortunately, I don't really have any tube that big, so I think we're going to have to cut that and then bend that into a tube. And then it's going to need a flange on the inside of the trailer, so then there's more welding. Hopefully we got enough welding wire for all that. All right, got it all welded up. A lot of starts and stops. I was using this really cheap mask, and then I remembered I had a less cheap mask. So those are all the excuses I got. So I'm gonna let it cool down, and then I think from here, I might do some sanding, grinding, and then it is time to make the tube and the flange. Not sure what order I'm gonna do those in. I'm gonna wait for this thing to come down from burning my skin off, so. I'm waiting for some sanding discs to come in from Amazon for this. So we will start moving on to the tube. Now I did find in my little stash there something a little bit thinner than this, not much thinner. And I'm not even sure what grade of steel this is. It is rusting and it is magnetic, so that's a good start. One thing I wanted to talk about though, the vent on the inside, I'm going to have it not perfectly lined up with this hole. And what I mean by that is, so the outside scoop, and then it'll kind of go up to where the inside vent is actually at. So then that way, if there's any kind of water or it just kind of wants to go back out of this. And I'm gonna coat the whole inside of this with Bondo so that inside of here, it's nice and rounded so that water can't just like make its way into the crack right there and just kind of destroy everything. So I'm gonna cut this. So the circumference of like a 3 3/4 inch hole is just over 11, almost 12 inches. So I'm just gonna cut it at 12. And then I will start seeing about how I'm going to bend this. Well, that cuts out a lot easier. All right, so even before I attempt to bend this, I'm gonna clean it up because the inside of it is gonna be horrible if I actually get it into a good circle. So might as well just do it all now. All right, so it has already kind of like a natural bend to it. Also has some coating on it that I wasn't able to like fully get off, but I got off all the rust. So I figure let's try to bend it now. So I'm gonna use some clamps and just bend it around. All right, so I got 2 clamps on it. And then I'm just gonna, so this is smaller than I need, but if I can get it around this, it'll spring back to probably about the size I need. At least that's what I'm hoping for. So I got a clamp on the top and clamp on the bottom. And let's see if anybody wants to hold. Well, it's bending. It's not liking it, but it's bending. All right, so I'm gonna start out with 2 15 inchers. So one of the reasons I would use 2 is so that you're not just focusing all of your pushing, bending power on one spot. So we're gonna see how tight we actually have to get this. I think I need to crimp this down right about where the actual hole saw's at. Hopefully we don't, fully bend and tweak the hole saw. But I guess when we get to that. There we go. Who would have thought a hole saw is a bending guide? All right, so now I'm gonna get below the hole saw and then above the hole saw. And yeah, just that last little bit. All right, now I think we are a lot better off. And I can almost, yeah, like right in there. Now use the compressing power of the vise itself to get that to bend around. All right. So now I think we're close enough to get that out of there if we can. Yep, just like that. Just pull it apart. And then from here, let's see. Can we get it close enough to get these 2 to touch? So the other thing too is when we finally get this together and tack it down, what's going to happen there is then it'll start acting like a solid object, and then we could start really going around and actually tweaking it together. But you see right here, we're a little bit offset. So one of the things we could try to do is try to tweak that back. It's not going to hold probably. So I think if we put maybe something in there, something I don't care about. Here's a little 1/2-inch piece of aluminum. There we go. Overshooting. Need to overshoot some more. So it's pretty well even right now. So I'm just going to tack it, and then we'll flip it over and we'll do the other side. Well, it welds. Gotta give it that. So I understand it does not look like a circle or a really bad circle. So I think what I should do is finish welding up that, and then we will start shaping it in to an actual circle. All right, so after a ton of grinding and shaping, there it is, and look at that, even fits in the hole. So I think what I was referring to, that if this was like this, I'm gonna have this at a bit of an angle, maybe not that much, but maybe something like that. So this is long enough so it should poke out the other side of the trailer, and I'm gonna have it kind of like that-ish. So that means I need to grind this other side down. And what that's gonna do is if any water is sitting in here, it's gonna run out and then run out that. So this will need to be trimmed that way, and then put the flange on, weld it flat so that this wants to kind of go out at an angle in the hole. And then it doesn't need to be much, it just needs to be enough so that water doesn't want to sit there and wants to roll off. So then from there, I think now I just need to cut the flange on this, or if the sanding disc comes in, I'll start sanding this, and then so that we can start bondoing this. All right, we got the flanges cut out. So what we did was I used the 4-inch hole saw and cut out 2 of these. And then from there, I used the saw to then chop them out. And then from there, used the disc grinder to then finish them up. And then I used the flapper wheel to clean them up. And then I had some of this mesh, I think it's for like rodents and stuff like that. But when I was talking with my wife, you know, going like down the road, there's not going to be anything stopping anything from coming into the trailer. So I decided to make a mesh, and I cut out 2 circles of this, and then I moved one slightly over so that there is a good amount of coverage right there. So if we're just sitting there and there's light coming through, I'm imagining that this would just be a beacon for bugs to just come at. So at least this will stop relatively anything big from coming through. So that should catch you up on what we've done up to this point. This metal, I wish I had something a little thinner, but yeah. So what we're gonna do now is, I think I'm going to line this up to the tube, and I'm gonna show you how I'm attaching this. So one of these is just gonna be a washer. So there's gonna be through holes, and then the mesh is gonna go on through the holes. And then right here, I'm guessing that we'll do maybe some flush countersunk screws from this side coming out, and then those will be what that screws onto. And then going this way will probably be screws that are holding this onto the wall. And then the tube that we made is going to weld into here at a slight angle. So this will bolt onto the wall, and then this will go onto this, and then there'll probably have some wing nuts on this so that when I put it on, it is removable. so that when we're driving down the road, if for some reason something big gets caught in here, I'm able to unscrew this and then service it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mark out 2 sets of holes. So let's say the 2 sets of holes need to be for the plate that's against the wall. So what it's going to be is I'm going to drill these and then countersink them and then probably weld in the screw. And then, so this piece will come off and the screen will come off with it so that it can be cleaned and then put back on. So these are going to be, so let's say this is the top piece. These are going to be coming through here, and I'll probably weld them on this side so that you can just tighten them down. I wanted wing nuts so that I could undo this on the road or just anything, so just make it a little bit easier. But this is just 1/4-20, so if the wing nuts vibrate loose, I can just put 1/4-20 nylon locking nuts. I've actually seen 1/4-20 nylon locking nuts that were wing nuts, so that would be cool too. But I found those, so just going to mark this, drill them out, and then weld them in, and then we'll figure out. So the walls aren't that thick, so I think that these would be fine to bolt this on there. So this is going to come from this way, and then these ones would be going in this way, screwing it into the wall. And then once we got all that done, then we're going to weld in the tube, and then from there we'll have to probably cut the tube flush so that it matches this, and then we'll have to drill out the holes in the trailer. But before we do that, I think we'll start bondoing the actual scoop itself, but that's what I'm going to start on right now. All right, got them all drilled out, and I put a nut and a washer on the other side because the threads don't actually come up or go down all the way, especially when you have it countersunk that much. So just a washer helps those to be tight. They're not like super tight, but by putting those in, it helps to keep them exactly 90. So I'm going to go around, and you can see that the countersink is a little bit bigger than the whole thing, so that's good because I'm going to fill that in with weld. And then I thought while I was welding, I should weld together the screen that we cut out. So just a couple tacks here and there, probably turn down the welder a lot. Just clamp together, tack, and then clamp together, tack. That way it's held together. And then we'll probably have to drill holes so that this wants to fit through that. But pretty excited about that. That is fine. That's all working to plan. So just gonna weld that up real quick. All right, I don't think I turned the welder down all the way, but it still wasn't enough. Probably some other method of just gluing it would probably be a little bit better, but still will work. And that is still like 1,000 degrees. All right. You know what's funny is I finally got the auto darkening on my helmet to start working now that most of the welding is actually done. So that's pretty hilariously exciting. All right, so you can see right there, kept everything nice and centered. So now I just need to grind those flush, and since there was there was more countersink than I needed, that is just filled in with weld now. It just has to stop you from tightening it down or breaking them loose with the wing nuts, which should be fine. So before I do that, while I'm letting that cool down, probably just gonna drill out these 2 holes so that it lines up and goes in, and then we'll start to figure out where the holes are gonna be for the mesh, and then that'll be pretty well done. And then we'll put the tube in. So one of the reasons that the tube is less than a 4-inch diameter and this is more is because if we go straight in, say we got plenty of room, but I want this at a slight downward angle, something like that. Maybe not as aggressive, but like that. So then that way when it's in the trailer, if there's any water sitting in this, it wants to drain back out the vent rather than inside the trailer. So that's the reason for that. So we would go around welding that and then cut off the excess of the pipe, but it's probably not going to be that aggressive. It's probably going to be something more similar to that. Just barely. I'll probably figure it out, cut it, and then weld it in. So, because probably maybe a little bit better way would have been welding in these last, well, it's kind of hard because then I wouldn't have been able to grind those as easily flat and then put them in. So it's just like, it's just gonna have to be the way it is currently. So we will put that in, figure out what angle we want. So you can make it completely 90 if you want, which is completely fine. But I'm just gonna put a little bit of a taper on it, or a little bit of an angle on it, so water wants to drain out. All right, there she is. So I just kind of put a line so that I knew which sides were out and line it, because you flip it the other way, it's a little bit different. So I just took some little clippers and cut off the big portions of the weld points. So I even put a little bit of a bend in this so that it kind of pushes on the edges. So it's kind of bent down so that it pushes as you're tightening it down. You just take off the wing nuts. So theoretically, if you're out there driving and something's caught, you would just pull that off, and then there's your screen. So I just clipped around to let the screws through. So I'll probably just go around and kind of just cut off anything that's sticking out that's gonna rip me open. So even if you get this part wrong, you can't really buy this in not a giant roll, so you'll have plenty of opportunities. So I'm going to now go ahead and drill the other holes. This is what you'll see from the inside of the trailer. Obviously we'll paint it and sand it, make it look as good as it can. But this side, you need to drill the holes so that we'll have these screwed into here. I'm not gonna need to weld them or anything like that, but the holes need to be ready to go, so we're gonna do that. And then from there, we will try to figure out what angle we want this. It doesn't really need to be that big of an angle. It just needs to be so that the water doesn't want to sit in here. And then the seam of where I put the two ends together, I'll probably make sure that that's on the top. And then from there, this piece will be done until we drill the hole in the trailer for this to come out, because this is intentionally long, so it'll stick out, and then we'll trace around the trailer and get that dimension, and then cut off that end, and then this piece will be done, and then we can paint it and do all that stuff. But I'm gonna drill all the holes for mounting right now. All four are drilled out, countersunk. Just kind of eyeballed what looked good. So the wall is not much thicker than that. I think it's only maybe ½ inch thick, so these are already gonna poke out, so no need in putting anything longer. They are flush. So now, before we keep getting a little crazy, I actually, that mark that lines up with this mark, I'm just gonna call that the top. So then this will need to be angled down, and I can just figure out from now. So I'll have the seam aiming up, and maybe I'll even put the seam on that line. And then, so the more angled down this is, probably the more challenging I'm gonna have lining up the two holes. So I think just a skosh down. It doesn't need to be much. And realistically, probably one of the things I could do is I could just tack it right here, make it 90, tack it, and then just bend it down. But I would like to figure out, first of all, how much to cut off of this, and then, because if you really didn't want to do a lot, you could put the bottom on flush right here, and then the back right here flush with that. But I kind of would rather have it all flush from this side, but just, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that jigsaw will cut this down no problem. It already kind of blew through everything else we have, so I'm just gonna figure out what angle I want that at. See, I can have it at a pretty aggressive angle down if I wanted, and then just cut that flush. But I don't think we're gonna quite go that far. Okay, so what I decided to do is get a giant set of vice grips, and then the seam right there, I just lined it up with that line. And then I just kind of pulled this back just a little bit of a reveal there, and then just ran the Sharpie around. You can tell it's flush up here and kind of goes down there. And then once this is in the wall, you'll see that that is kind of angled down a little bit. Just a little added layer of security there. So all I'm going to do now is take that off and then just run the jigsaw around, and then probably clean it up on the sander. Not sure how well this is going to go, so might as well film it. You can see how much was cut off there. So I think what will probably be the easiest is to just pull that down until that's flat. All right, so now, if that was mounted right there, you'd see it has a bit of a downward angle. So everything's flush on top. And now we'll just go around and tack, 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 and just weld it up. There are some gaps right here. If your gaps are too big, you could put a little coat hanger in there. But everything should be fine for me. All right, now that I got my helmet dialed in, you can see like I'm dialing it in and dialing it out. Now it's definitely working better, and pretty much I think most of the welding's all done. So yeah, I got some tricks on how to get the gap up there. It wasn't too bad. So I think I'm gonna get the flapper wheel out and try to just clean up as much of this as I can. All right, so that's what she looks like. Pretty cool. Pretty excited about that. So I would say everything is pretty well ready to go and install in the trailer. Here's the bolts. So this one's at a standstill until we actually drill out this hole in the trailer and mount this on, and then put all the bracing and supports inside the trailer, and then can push this through and then mark off how much needs to be cut. So this is at a standstill until that point. So now I think we'll get back onto the scoop. I'm gonna grind some of the welds, and then from there we're going to probably start bondoing it actually. All right, so we're like 36 minutes in. We're probably gonna have to cut it off right there. Didn't want these videos to get too long because I did the automatic toilet paper receiver dispenser thing, and that was like a really long video. So I'd like to break this up. So we accomplished a lot in this video, and I'm really excited for the upcoming videos because we'll finish drilling out the flange, we'll bondo it, paint it, prime it, get it all ready. The tube, that turned out, it was a little bit wonky, just keep having to stretch and pull that, but we eventually got it into a circle. And if you keep working on it, you'll get it there too. That's kind of like a hidden piece because once that's installed, you really don't see it. So we'll do all the painting and the finishing. And then I think in the fourth video, that's when we'll start drilling holes in the trailer and kind of scary stuff where you can't go back from. So we'll do all that in the fourth video, but thanks for watching. Everything that we use will be in the description. And also there's a playlist in case you guys missed anything. So maybe you're catching up while it's coming out, or whether it's 10 years from now. So there'll be a playlist, so that'll be in the description. But thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this. Let us know what you would do differently if you have any projects that this would help you out on. But we really appreciate all you guys' support. See you next week.